What is up, my fellow fishermen? It is Alden, aka Reno Rivers PNW here, coming at you with my first video. We're going to be starting a new series telling you about certain setups that I use for different species of fish. The goal here is to teach you something and entertain you along the way, so let me know if there's anything else you want to see and enjoy. And for the first video, I'm going to be going in depth and shedding some light on coho fishing in an estuary. And if you're not familiar with that term, it is basically where a river meets the salt water, so it can be otherwise known as a bay, is what forms in some areas. And be sure to check your local regs, because some places you're not allowed to fish inside the bay, some places you can, and some places you can even fish a little upriver of the bay, kind of in the brackish water. Now, it took me some time to learn this fishery, as the fish can be a bit lockjawed, but being in salt water, they will most of the time be biting better than the ones in the river. So it's a really fun way to fish. I'd recommend it for anyone who hasn't tried it, and yeah, let's get into this. So when I'm getting out my boat, I'm bringing an assortment of heavy lures so I can get deep in the water column. So starting out, got the Buzz Bomb, got the Mepps Flying C if you haven't heard of it. We have a Blue Fox, which you could get in a variety of colors, just like the Flying C. And you can even use fly if you want to fly fish. So this one, obviously the Buzz Bomb, being the heaviest, you can cast it really far. You can cover a lot of ground with this. I personally like the Mepps Flying C because it's got some of that weight of the Buzz Bomb, and it also has a really nice color pattern and a nice action. Caught a lot of fish this year on the Flying C. And then you have the Blue Fox, which is a lot like the Flying C without the hoochie skirt, although you can add one if you'd like. I do that time to time. And the most fun technique would be fly, because the fight is like nothing else. And when it comes to rod selection, I have two rods that are my go-to rods for estuary coho fishing. The first being my Okuma Guide Select Pro. It's nice and lightweight, can really flick the lure out there as far as you can get it. My second one of choice being the Lamiglas X11, which is also lightweight. The Okuma is in 9.9 and the Lamiglas is in 9.6. And now I'm going to give you three major tips that should help you catch more coho when you're out there in the estuary. For number one, it seems simple, but cast as far as you can. Estuaries can be very large places at times, and you will cover more ground by doing so. These fish are traveling in schools, so you want your lure to go by as many fish as possible to find a willing taker. And for tip number two, don't get too eager on the retrieve. I say this because in float fishing, you're supposed to keep your rod tip up, and in a lot of river fishing as well. When you're in an estuary fishing for coho, you're going to want to be stealthy. You're going to want to have your presentation moving slower than it would in the open ocean. When the coho are out in the ocean feeding, they'll be willing to chase down a lure moving a little faster. But in the estuary, they will be stopping feeding soon. You're going to want to slow it down just a bit. This helped me a lot. At first I was reeling too fast, didn't get any hookups, and then after I made the change, boom, hookup after hookup. The third tip, I would recommend to get out there and try drifting with the tide. You can definitely catch a fish on a slack tide as well, but I fished a flood tide where I had 5 hookups in 15 minutes, and the rest of the day I wasn't catching anything. So sometimes the tide change is what makes them bite, and also allowing yourself to drift with the tide, you will cover more ground. So you already got the weights of your setup, being able to cover ground like that, and now you're drifting as well, so you're naturally covering more ground. And I have found that through fishing coho and estuaries for a few years, those 3 tips have led me to way more hookups, so I hope it will do the same for you. And to be honest, when I first started this kind of fishing, I didn't have too much luck. It took me some hours and some observation. I watched the other anglers around me, one of which was an old-timer who's been fishing there for around 30 years, so he knows his stuff. He had his rod tip low and was reeling in very subtly. And me, on the other hand, having my rod tip high and reeling in fast, I realized that making that change was necessary. Once I did so, fish after fish. So I hope the same for you. And with it being the off season right now, I just wanted to prep you guys a little bit, give you some tips. I am not by the book by any means, so what I'm saying on here may be different than what you've heard, and anything really could work. But for me, this is what I've found has worked more efficiently by trial and error. So I hope you learned something, and good luck out there. Go catch some silvers.